Okay, give us your full name and who your mother and father were, their names also.
Okay, my name's Donald Ralph Fisher. My father was Ralph Fisher, and my mother was Oline Fisher.
Are you originally from the area?
Yes, I've lived here all my life.
And has your family always been involved in farming?
Yes, my father farmed before me and my grandfather before him.
How long has your family been in the Mullins area?
Since 1937.
Tell me a little bit about what your father farmed and your grandfather.
Well, I don't remember what my grandfather farmed, but my father farmed tobacco mostly, and cotton and corn.
Mm-hmm. And what do you farm now?
I farmed tobacco and soybeans.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about what it was like growing up on a farm.
Well, it was a lot of work. Getting up early in the morning and working long days.
Well, what were some of your typical chores on a day before you had to go to school, or maybe even a Saturday?
Oh, well, when we were younger, my brother and I had to milk the cow before we went to school. I can remember doing that. And I had to get in coal. We heated the house with coal every day. And then during the summertime, we helped gather tobacco. And I can remember when I first was old enough to drive drags, I was excited the night before. Couldn't hardly go to sleep because I was so excited about driving drags the next day. But you look forward to it then. Seems like people now don't look forward to working too much.
How long were the days in the summer when you were working in tobacco?
We worked about 10 hours.
Talk about when you were first allowed to work in the tobacco field. What did you first do as a young child, and then you kind of moved up?
Okay, like I say, we'd first job you would be able to do would be drive drags. And of course, we pulled tobacco with a mule back then. And you thought you were a big man when you could drive drags. And then after you drove drags a while, you'd see the older guys cropping tobacco, and you wanted to crop tobacco too, because you wanted to be bigger and older, you know. And so I started cropping tobacco too, and after I cropped a while, I realized I'd been put off. I'd have drove drags.
How about talk a little bit about any memories you have of grading and tying tobacco?
Yes, I remember grading and tying tobacco, and my mother had a grading bench, and she had it partitioned off for different grades, and you'd have a good grade and a not so good grade, and you'd have a green grade and a trash grade, and she would grade it, and we would all tie it.
How about curing tobacco?
When I was a boy, we cured in stick barns, of course, and we used had coal stokers on our farms, and that was one of my jobs, was to keep the stoker full of coal. And then later on, we moved up to oil burners, you know, and then, of course, now we use the bulk barns.
Now, when you were a child, was it an all-night affair? Did you have to stay up and make sure that the temperature stayed at a level, it didn't go below a certain level?
No.
Keep the coal, putting in the coal, or?
Right, you could fill the coal stoker at night, and it would last all night, and the barn was thermostatically controlled, so you didn't have to worry about that. But before that, my father had to stay up all night with the wood, you know.
Talk a little bit about what it was like going to tobacco market as a child.
Oh, that was a big day. We used to, my brother and I would take off tobacco, and for my mother to grade it, and she'd tell us if we took off on the tobacco, to keep her going till we got back, that we could go to the market, you know, with truck to sell tobacco. And so we'd work real hard and take off tobacco and get some ahead so we could go. And it was exciting to go to the warehouse, and there was a lot of people there, a lot of farmers there, and they were selling peanuts and a lot of things going on, you know. Quite a difference from today.
How about talk a little bit about how working in farming has changed from when you were a child to now?
Well, it was mostly manual labor when I was a boy, and it's just so much more mechanized now, and involves a lot of equipment, a lot of expense, and a lot of preparation in the wintertime getting your equipment ready.
How about the change in the weather? Something that we've come across this week is that a lot of folks say, well, the ground used to freeze really hard, and you don't hardly see that anymore. Has that changed the way you farm any?
Well, it doesn't really change the way you farm any, but I've noticed a lot of difference. I remember when the ground used to stay froze for a week at a time, and now it seems like the ground's never froze. And it may be something to this global warming. I didn't think so, but it appears to be warmer now than it was, say, 20 years ago.
Yes, sir. Do you recall the use of herbicides on your farm as a child?
When we were first farming, we didn't use any herbicides. We just kept everything clean with hoeing and cultivating. But of course, we use a lot of them now.
How about talk about your experience with cotton? Have you? Let's see here. Do you know what a cotton pea is?
I think what cotton pea is the pea that you eat, what we call the field pea.
And have you ever planted corn and peas together?
Yeah, sure have.
What was your reason behind that?
Well, you could gather the corn. Of course, you gathered the corn by hand back then, and then you could in the fall you could pick the peas out of the corn. The peas would climb up the corn stalk, and they were easy to pick. You could pick those field peas and eat them in the fall.
As a child, do you remember how your father controlled insects?
Well, when I came along, we were using some insecticides, and I remember my first memory of a sprayer was a sprayer on a flat drag that you had to pump when you went down the road to spray tobacco. And I remember him going down the road, pumping that sprayer and spraying tobacco,
Mm-hmm. You have any memories on the farm about your father or yourself killing hogs?
Yeah, I sure do. And we'd take the hogs and put them in a big vat and scald them, and I remember them pulling the hair and scraping the hair off of them. And we'd hang the hog up had a tree we'd hang the hog up in, and cut them open and gut them and all that, And it would seem like every time we killed hogs, we'd have liver for supper that night, because that was something that was ready to eat,
When did your family stop doing that?
I don't really remember. Probably mid-50s, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall, as a child, your father, or have you ever dug a well on your land?
No, there were some wells on our farm when I came up.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the first time that hybrid corn was planted?
No, not really. I remember I planted some hybrid corns, but I don't really remember the first one.
Mm-hmm. How about you remember the first time that lime was used on your farm?
I'd say it may have been used before then, but when I remember it would be in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember Coker 139 tobacco?
Yes, I do.
And why did everybody like Coker 139 so much?
Well, it cured good and made so much tobacco. Back then, you weren't limited by poundage. You could sell everything you made, and everybody liked to make, of course, as much as they could. And it made a lot of tobacco.
Do you have any sons involved in farming?
No, I don't.
No. Do you feel like that farming has been good to you?
Yeah, I do. I feel like farming's been real good to me, and but I just don't see any future in it for, as far as tobacco is concerned, for any young person just starting out.
The allotment's been cut drastically the last few years. Has that affected what you've done?
Yes, it has. It's we've lost nearly 54% in 3 years. It's affected us a great deal.
Now, does this mean you're looking at alternative crops?
Yeah, well, you keep looking, but I don't really see anything that would replace tobacco at this time.
What would this mean for you? Eventually, you would scale down your farming activities to kind of meet the quota, or you just leave the land just sitting there?
Well, you'd plant the land and beans or some other crop, but we've lost quota, and we've don't farm as many acres, don't require the labor that we used to have to work during the summertime.
Do you recall what the price was for tobacco per pound as a child, or per 100 pounds? Or?
Yeah, I can remember when it was in the 50s. And you'd be glad if you could get like 56 cents. I can remember that.
Mm-hmm. The price seems to kind of settle around $1.70, $1.80 now. Do you remember when it was over $2?
Yeah, I remember. Well, one year it was like $2.05.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the Mullins market can survive?
I believe the Mullins market can survive. If the auction system as a whole survives, Mullins will survive because it's one of the bigger markets. I think some of these smaller markets will probably be closing, and Mullins will probably pick up some extra people from them, some extra customers from them.
How about talk about your experience with Clemson Extension? Were you involved in any 4-H programs and coming up in school?
Yeah, I was in 4-H club when I was in school. And,
what did you enjoy about 4-H?
Well, it was just an easy class at that time. It's the main thing I thought about. But other than that, I don't really remember too much about it.
How about your involvement with Clemson Extension agents over the years?
Yes, I've been involved in them, and they've helped me, especially with tobacco and like identifying diseases on the farm and things like that.
Any names that you remember? Any agents that have been especially helpful?
Yeah, Marion Carter was the first one I dealt with, and he was real helpful. And then Bill Jones and Ben Kittrell over at with the Clemson Extension Service was real good.
Do you recall as a child having someone come in for a home demonstration, like a home demonstration agent coming around?
I remember my mother used to go to the home demonstration. They had a home demonstration club, I believe, at that time, and they would meet different homes at different times of or once a month, or I don't remember how often, but every so often they'd meet.
Before the quota was cut back, how many acres did you plant of tobacco?
125.
Do you still plant cotton?
No.
No. Any corn?
No.
No. Soybeans? Or?
Yes, soybeans.
So it's a soybean and tobacco mix right now.
That's right. I used to plant corn, but I got it's some more. You have more invested in corn, you stand to lose more, and the price of all commodities now is so low that you can plant beans, and if you don't really make a good crop, you hadn't lost that much.
How about talk a little bit about crop rotation and how you've used that over the years?
Well, we used to rotate tobacco with corn always, and we'd never plant corn behind soybeans. But lately we do, and with tobacco, when we were planting a lot of tobacco. We'd rotate every other year, tobacco and soybeans, and then back to tobacco. But disease has gotten so bad that we're trying to develop everything into a 3-year rotation. We plant tobacco on the land every 3rd year.
I know the mechanization in farming has helped. Do you feel like it's hurt in any way?
I don't really think it has. The quality, if it's done right, the quality of the mechanized gathered tobacco is just as good as the one done by hand,
Are you able to get more out of an acre now than you were 20 years ago, maybe?
Yes. You get more pounds per acre. And I think the greenhouses, I grow my plants in the greenhouse, and I think greenhouse plants will produce more tobacco. They produce more leaves and produce more pounds per acre too.
Do you have more even growth in your tobacco than you used to?
Yeah, I do, and that's a lot of attributed to the greenhouse.
What do you like about golden leaf tobacco? What are some of the qualities that you like in the tobacco that's grown around here?
You mean flue-cured tobacco?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, it's me personally. It's just a pretty crop to grow, and when you get it matured and get the tops out, it's a satisfying feeling to ride around the fields each day and look at the good crop of tobacco.
With the up and down weather that we've had, especially in the 90s, has that affected your crop setting? Maybe too much rain, not enough rain?
Yeah, we've had some years we had too much rain, of course, and you're going to have that. If you farm, you're going to have, you just well be prepared for adverse weather. And we've had some years when we didn't get enough rain and had to do a lot of irrigating. Of course, last year the heat was a big factor. Had a good crop, and the high temperatures over 100 for weeks at a time baked all the oil out of the stalk tobacco, and it wasn't any good. It was very poor quality tobacco.
Do you use much manual labor getting tobacco ready to go to market now?
Yeah, we use right much. We don't use as much as we used to due to mechanization.
Can you give us any estimates? Let's say 25 years ago, how many people would you have hired on average versus now?
Well, back when you were using stick barns, you would have used probably like 20 people to gather the barn of tobacco. And now we gather like 3 barns a day with 12 people. So it's cut the labor force down a lot.
How long do you see yourself staying in farming?
I don't know. I'm getting to the age where I won't be too long before I retire, but I'm going to stick with this tobacco as long as it's here. When the tobacco goes, I'll probably go.
Do you think there's a possibility that tobacco can make a comeback? Do you think the export business will keep tobacco as a viable crop?
I think tobacco will always be grown, and I think it'll always be grown in this area, but it's going to be a different situation. I think you're going to see the farmers growing for the companies, looks like, and I think you're going to see this price of this tobacco is going to have to come down. It needs to, all the tobacco needs to be gotten into the hands of the farmers that's farming it, and the quota owners, in my opinion, need to be paid for their quota. I own quota too, and anybody that owns quota should be compensated for it. But if that ever happens, then we can get the rent equation out of it. We can grow tobacco a little cheaper, and get back in competition with the world market. And things ought to improve then.
Has the crop overseas gotten better? Do you feel like it's a threat to American tobacco growers?
Yes, definitely. Just like in Brazil, they grow good quality tobacco now, I understand. And they have cheap labor, like $1 a day for the labor. And that's what I was saying earlier. That's hard to compete with. And from what I hear, we're like 40 cents a pound too high. And they can go to Brazil and buy tobacco and ship it in here cheaper than buy it from us.
Are you expecting anything from the tobacco settlement? Or you feel like you'll be a part of that?
Well, I hope so. I'm not going to make any big purchases depending on that, but I think we're entitled to some compensation because we definitely lost quota, and the value of our equipment's certainly not what it used to be.
What do you think of the federal government's role in kind of acting as not knowing the right hand, not knowing what the left hand is doing sometimes?
In what respect?
In the support of the quota system, but yet they're trying to kill it off possibly at the same time earlier on.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to understand. This smoking issue is and this settlement also is hard to understand. They're going to take all this money out of tobacco, all this tax money out of tobacco, and pay. And they're going to sue the companies and get all this money from the companies and pay all these settlements, and yet they're trying to kill smoking at the same time. And smoking is what's going to be, where the revenue is going to come from to pay these settlements. It's kind of one conflicts against the other.
Where do you take your tobacco to market when you go to market?
Bullens.
What warehouse?
Daniel's warehouse.
Have you had a good relationship with the Daniel warehouse over there?
Yes, sure have. My father sold there before I farmed, and I've sold there ever since.
You have any memories? I know we talked a little bit about going to market. Has the time changed over the years? Has it always been opening in August and closed in the middle of October, about that same period there?
Yeah, basically. Some years vary a little bit, but according to the season, according to the growing season. But it's basically been about the same.
How about talk about when it was festival time? What was that like as a child?
Oh, it was a big day in Mullins Tobacco Festival. Town would be full and a lot going on. And of course, there were a lot more farmers then, and there was a lot more real rural people, I would guess you would say. But town would be full of people on festival day.
And do you have any brothers that are involved in farming? Anybody in your family?
No, I have 2 brothers, but they're not involved in farming.
Can you think of any other questions? Okay, I think we've got it.
Okay.
None of that was bearable.
Just wanted to do this.
Appreciate you.
Something just fell down my leg. frozen.